This episode of the Level Flight podcast is brought to you by Manscaped. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to announce that smooth sack summer is officially upon us. When you're playing in the summer sun, make sure you're groomed from pubes to bump. Thanks to our friends at Manscaped, you can make this season your smoothest yet. The Performance Package 5.0 Ultra is the ultimate bundle to keep your boys downstairs cool while looking hot. Join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Get 20% off and free shipping when you go to manscaped.com and use code THPN. Summertime and trimming is easy. Every man knows how scary it can get when going for a close shave below the belt. That's why it's easier to trust Manscaped for all the sensitive areas. The Manscaped Performance Package 5.0 Ultra has everything you need to prepare for that summer bod. Manscaped was nice enough to send us something special. Inside the package we got, you'll find the star of the show, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. Their 5th generation trimmer features 2 interchangeable next-gen skin-safe blade heads, a standard one for taking a little off the top, and a new foil blade to go smooth wherever your heart desires. We also have dual LED spotlights to provide contrast on multiple skin tones, 3 setting combs, and oh, did I mention this trimmer is waterproof? Get 20% off and free shipping with the code THPN at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code THPN at manscaped.com. It's smooth sack summer, boys. Get on board or get left behind. Okay, we good to go?
Always good to go.
I'm just chilling at Canada Life Center.
That's the hard-hitting analysis you listen to the Level Flight podcast for.
Here we go.
Jets are a brisket team, low and slow for the first 2 periods, and boom, an explosion of flavor in the last few minutes of the third.
Doing all right. Better if my internet would work.
Elliot.
This is comedy. I'm Brian. I'm joined by Connor.
Hello.
And Elliot.
Hey, hey.
Wow, that was fun.
You're listening to the Level Flight podcast.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome into the 20th edition of LFP Live. I don't know if my mic's picking up an echo. It's pretty echoey in this room, but I'm in the media workroom at the Hockey for All Center. It is development camp, and the players are going to be hitting the ice at 9:30, 10. So I'm here live on location, but we've got a full crew today. Brian and Elliot joining us on this Sunday morning, and everyone in chat as well. Brian and Elliot, how we doing?
Doing great. I was there for the first couple of days of dev camp. Had to work yesterday, and be cutting it a little close to my time at the ballpark today, so I can't join you there. But no, it's a nice Sunday morning as always. Got the sun in behind me here. It's perfect.
We're good over here. I mean, working. It's summertime as a student, right? Just trying to get other stuff done while also working, and yeah, it's almost as hectic as the normal school year, just in a different aspect. So
exactly. And honestly, after this kind of week of development camp, it gets pretty quiet, and especially with the Ehlers and McGroarty stuff, not really, there's really no rumors. I mean, there are rumors, but how factual are they with both of those situations
at this point? Yeah,
like it's really. I'm not really sure what to think about those 2 situations at this point. But anyways, last day of development camp, the players are hitting the ice at 9:30, 10-ish. And then I'll dip out early since I'm here. And then these 2 will carry it home with the questions portion, as we always end off every LFP Live with questions from you guys. Let's start. I know the graphic, the handy dandy graphic there says the development camp recap first, but I actually want to start with the Stanley and Gus extensions. Both of them signed yesterday right at around 11 a.m. 2-year deals. Gustafsson's is $835K AAV. Stanley's is 1.25, I believe. Matt was saying he's not surprised by the 2-year extensions. Maybe he's disappointed, but not surprised. Brian, were you surprised when you saw both of them and the fact that they were both 2-year extensions?
I think I'm right there with the disappointed but not surprised necessarily. We've seen such an extensive, look at, sticking with guys maybe longer than, most teams should. That's the thing. Like at this point, they're tweeners. Like they're not regular NHL players. They're not young anymore. And it's whatever with the Gustafsson one because he's just above league minimum. And he did play some meaningful games last year, but I don't know how I could rationalize giving Logan Stanley a second year and a raise. Because especially later in that year, like he struggled mightily. And if you're giving a guy a raise and a 2-year term, are you penciling him in on that third pairing?
I mean, my counter to that, to they paid, or you saying that they're tweeners, is I think they paid tweener prices. Like, I don't know. What do you pay for a 7th D nowadays? We'll see what Dylan Coughlin gets. Maybe he gets like 900K or $1 million or 850. But I don't know. The Jets think he's well, they don't think. They know that he's tall and fights and is big. And, I guess they like those things. But I get it. The raise part is interesting to me. But I don't know. I just, what is Ville Heinola going to get? Like, is he not going to get like 1 million? I don't know. But yes, I did see people on Twitter. It's funny saying like, well, he started to show his game at the end of last year. Like he's finally starting to develop. It's like, he's 26. Like, like develop. What are we saying?
Let's be real. Like the development
shouldn't he be at development camp?
Like
that, geez.
Yeah.
Like truly the development curve on guys like that, you need to at that point have some sort of true progression and give people a reason to believe that there's a little bit more. I've seen nothing to say that, he's going to somehow get over the hump and become a different defender. He's not going to suddenly get significantly faster. He's not going to get super, like keen on making these plays that he hasn't been able to make in his career. I don't know. Maybe it's just like the fact that he's someone who played more last year. That's, I think, where the whole thing is. Yeah, he played more. He had more play time that you could say, oh, he made an okay play there. But that doesn't change the fact that he got absolutely lit up by speed.
Yeah.
I will say, and you can go back and check our very podcast, but he did play well down the stretch. He did. That is a fact. And we all said it. So I'm not going to say like, oh, he's finally hitting his ceiling as a player and like he's just getting started. Like, I think that's what Logan Stanley's ceiling is. When the Jets went into the playoffs on that 8-game winning streak last year, third pair, playing well. The penalty kill was doing okay. He was fighting like every other game. Like, I think that's the ceiling for him as a player, given what we've seen and the full sample size of this player's career. But as Al Camino says, then the playoffs happened where like I thought he played well down the stretch, and that is my opinion. I thought the last 8 games there he was great, and then going into the playoffs, like you said, Brian, just got absolutely obliterated by the speed, as did a lot of defenders on the Jets, but him specifically stood out, and the whole team got kind of burnt by speed, which is why it makes it even maybe a little bit more puzzling that they're bringing this guy back to maybe be a 6'7" tweener when you know that you want to get faster as a team and you want to get younger and cheaper. And Ville Heinola, as Jay Miller said, like could be a guy that's in that 6th defense spot and is faster, younger, maybe cheaper. It's interesting. And Matt saying, I do think Ville comes in under 1 million. We can talk about that. They still need to sign Ville and Perfetti. But Elliot, what were your thoughts on the 2-year deals for both Gustafsson and Stanley when they announced it yesterday at 11?
There's a couple things. First off, obviously there's a 2-year age gap between Gustafsson and Stanley. So if you're looking at contract length, where Stanley is right now is where Gustafsson is at the end of his deal. So a 2-year deal makes sense for him. You're telling me you want to pay Logan Stanley 1.25 million until he's 28 years old? Like, you still want him in your organization for...
I will say it does carry him to free agency.
It does,
UFA,
but at the same point, the Jets tried to move off of him 2 trade deadlines ago, at least as we know of. They were calling teams about him and didn't get anything. So you're telling me that you want to keep him till free agency because you're so worried about losing his rights right now because you think there's some value there? Like, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense that a guy who has shown very little at times at the NHL level. Yes, he's played well, but over the course of his entire professional career has not shown enough at the NHL level. You're going to pay him $250,000 less, just barely $250,000 less than Colin Miller, who is a serviceable.
When you put it that way, yeah,
it's a serviceable between five, like a third pairing defenseman, and on a good team is your 7th D. You're gonna tell me Logan Stanley's only making $250,000 less than that guy? Like, really?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I get that. I mean, going back to the comment I made earlier, like, yeah, this is what you pay for tweener prices. I don't. Now that you say that and you put it that way, I might take that statement back. Like, Colin Miller's not a tweener. He's an NHL defenseman. Whether he's your 7th or 6th, he's an NHL defenseman.
And that's Logan where my problem is because you're telling me, let's say Miller goes in this year as your what should be your 6th defenseman, as your right-hand D on the third pair. Are you going to tell me that you're going to run a pair of like Stanley, Heinola, and Miller's the one as the 7D, as the rotational defenseman? Like, that's really where we're going here? Like, that's where I just don't. And the whole speed thing. You cannot tell me when they do that analytics summit that Logan Stanley's analytics are gonna look very. And then I don't want to then hear, oh, you know, for a player like that, we throw the analytics out the window. No. If you're committing to the analytics, you play by the damn rules. You are committing to the analytics for every single player in your organization. There is no exception. Yeah, and at that point, there is no exception. And so that's where I'm kind of just like, why would you bring him back when you can't play him against certain teams? His analytics are going to be good. And it's not like he's this crazy point producing or, you know, he's an actual like really good shutdown defenseman. He's tall. He can't skate very well. And he goes out there and is tough and fights people for $1.25 million.
That's worth 1.25. I mean, look, as his play got better, so did his skating. Sorry, I won't stand. I left this comment up a long time, but I won't stand for any Gustafsson slander either. But anyways, I do think his skating got better last year as he, you know, the year before he had 2 ankle injuries. For a guy that's 6'7", that's really tough. And again, I'm not trying to make excuses. Like I said, he was good and then not in the playoffs. Like he showed well as a 6th defenseman, and then it all like went out the window in round 1. But which is when teams typically expose their opposing team's weaknesses, is in a 7-game playoff series, or in this case, a 5-game playoff series. And it was pretty quick to when he got taken out of the lineup, and in Game 5 he wasn't even in. And now here we go. Anything else on either of these extensions? I do think Gustafsson for $835 as a potential.
I think that's a great deal.
I know he probably won't be in the night 1 lineup unless like Nemesnikov is the 2C and they really need a guy with face. Unless Rick Bowness comes back and coaches the team, then I don't know if David Gustafsson will be in the night 1 lineup. But again, he's good depth. He's a good bottom 6 player, or maybe not. Like he's a average bottom 6 player, and he can come in and play on the 4th line, 3rd line, and have an impact, whether penalty killing, even strength. This playoff goal is a part of our heritage. That playoff goal, I will say, Game 2, when Gustafsson scored the first goal and then Scheifele made it 2-1 later in the game, those were the only 2 moments in the series where I thought the Jets were winning the series, because they were up 1-0 in the series at that point. And I was like, the Scheifele goal especially, I was like, this is it. They're actually going to do it. They're up 2-1. They're up 1-0 in the series. It was brutal. But anyways, anything else on Stan and Gus before we move on to maybe the depth signings outside of
the last thing I just wanted to say is, as much as we freak out and are not too happy about the Stanley extension, this is buyer's remorse. That's all
again, this isn't this isn't like the Jets are missing the playoffs now because they gave Stanley.
No, but I'm just saying
like,
the reason why they can't give up on him is because it's buyer's remorse. They can't deal with him going. Their worst nightmare. I think Kevin Cheveldayoff's worst nightmare would be them actually give up on Stanley, and then for some reason some other team picks him up and he plays okay. I think that would literally ruin Kevin Cheveldayoff. But
I still think the best thing that could have happened was if they actually decided to put him on waivers, and that like either he's claimed and someone else can deal with him, or he goes down and plays with the Moose and then he's depth. Like I feel like that would have been the best option there.
And maybe that's what their thought process is, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Declan Chisholm signed with the Wild, I believe, for $1 million, if I'm not mistaken. So just like he got $250,000 more than again, as Doug said as well, like $250,000 is a lot of money for the depth players that are on like the NHL, AHL.
Well, that's what I mean.
Obviously. Well, I guess that's what I mean. That's your point.
That's what I mean. Why is
a lot of money? But yeah, let's move on. We could talk about the Stanley. We could go way back to 2016. Back in the day.
Go way back to the early episodes where I said I could beat him in a race.
Yeah, and we can
want to see that.
Bring up how bad of a take that was. But anyways, okay, let's move on. I want to spend the bulk on dev camp, so let's quickly talk about the depth signings they signed or traded for, I guess, and haven't signed yet. Dylan Coghlan from the Carolina Hurricanes. This deal was reported by Elliot Friedman and then wasn't happening. And people were like, and then David Pagnotta reported that it was a part of a bigger deal. I don't know if maybe this could be like a precursor to a deal that the team is still working on. They might still be working on it. But anyways, what did you guys think of that trade? Basically getting Dylan Coghlan for free.
First of all, I'd like to appreciate the fact that they've added more Dylans per 60, because they lost Brendan Dillon, so they had to bring in someone else with Dillon in their name, so it works out. But in terms of what Coghlan is, I feel like for me, he's kind of that. I mean, another guy who can be an injury replacement. I wouldn't anticipate seeing him in the lineup every day. But he's depth, and I think he's good depth, which is the type of depth you'd actually like. And I feel like getting a guy like, a Coghlan to be an injury guy, it beats having, certain guys who, don't play for forever. He's been the healthy scratch other places. He's been kind of that in-between guy, and he's been sent up and down. But in terms of what I've seen in the past, because he hasn't played a lot recently, decent, moving of the puck, which is, as we've mentioned, a thing that the Jets lacked a lot down the stretch there. But I mean, there's not a lot that I can say about it. It was for future considerations, which is such a shame. I have my future considerations jersey in my closet right now.
Man. And you know what? Future considerations is getting traded a ton this offseason. And the more you see it with cap teams will be just trading away players for nothing. Future considerations. So you're seeing that a lot, and Carolina is one of those.
He's got a big shot too.
Dylan Coghlan or future considerations?
Both.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
You're trading big shot for big shot.
Exactly. Coghlan, he's an RFA, so he still needs a contract, but he was basically a cash dump. They didn't want to pay him. He's been in the AHL the last couple of years, so free depth. Might as well take it. He's still only 24, 25. So young, free depth who's excelled at the AHL level. And as Matt said, good AHL power play defenseman as well. The Moose need defensemen too. And if the opportunity arises, he can be a third pairing guy in the NHL. Elliot, what did you think of the Coghlan deal just quickly before we move on to Dev Camp?
Other than, they're just trying to make the Moose better. Like, you're telling me that blue line of like Hayden Fleury and Coghlan and, probably elite. I'm not going to mention some other names because it's going to make everybody angry, but there could be some other.
He's actually or is next year his last year that he can be on waivers, or is that done? Was that
He's
this
done.
year?
No, he
No,
has
he
to.
can't go
has
to-
to
okay,
clear.
yeah.
So he will not be.
Okay.
Knowing the Jets, then they're gonna like not want to lose him to waivers because God forbid. But
He'll just
I
sit.
mean, it's not a player that you want to lose in the first place.
Yeah, I think pending another move here, it's Morrissey, DeMello, Sandberg, Pionk, Heinola, Miller, Stanley is the 7D that they'll carry through training camp. And then if they pick up another one, maybe they carry 8 and one.
Well, yeah,
less
somebody
forward.
was saying
And
they historically do carry 8.
well, they did last year as well. Like
Yeah.
the line rushes that you saw every day, the fourth pair was always like Stanley Schmidt or whoever. So yeah, they do. Yeah, 9 D-men with Coughlin and Heinola just signed yet on one-way contracts, so something could still happen for sure. Quick, or not quick. I mean, it can be quick if we want it to be, but development camp. Today's the last day. The players are like walking through the hallway here, so I'm trying to mute my mic. I don't know how my audio sounds, but Brian, I know you were there on the first 2 days. I've been here every day as well. What were your kind of impressions watching? They've scrimmaged every day, which has been a surprise and a positive or a delightful surprise. What have you thought of dev camp in general and specifically the scrimmage portions?
I mentioned this to you on Friday, where even through the first 2 days, there was no one that was as noticeable and as sort of above everyone else as Brad Lambert. Brad Lambert was flying around out there, and he looked significantly sort of like a level above everyone else, which makes sense. He's played pro already for the last couple of years, and he is presumptively going to be a guy who's going to play NHL games and probably meaningful NHL games this season. I really think that guys like Lambert, who stand above the competition, I liked what I saw from Alphonse Frey. He was skating really well. I like his movement along the blue line, which is really nice to sort of transition from defense to offense. And then he didn't skate day 1. I saw him on day 2, so you saw him more after that. But Salmonson, he is bigger than I thought he was in terms of when he was standing next to everyone else. He's he's clearly filled out too. He is he's a big fella now. So no, I really liked that. You could really see how much of a level that Lambert is above everyone else. But in terms of guys that kind of stood out, I think those were the few.
Yeah, Brad Lambert yesterday as well was just flying out there. Do you think Barlow will get some NHL minutes?
I don't think so.
Saying he'll be back with juniors. Yeah, I can't.
Well,
see that
he can't be back with Owen Sound, can he?
He can.
Is he signed?
Yeah, this is his last one, his last year, and then
I guess.
Well, he signed his
even though
ELC, but he can go back one.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
So it's Moose or juniors, but who knows? I guess we'll find out. Lambert and Salmonson, most likely guys at dev camp to crack the Jets lineup. Yeah, Elliot, I know you haven't been able to make it down to dev camp, so maybe you can expand on this. Who do you think are some of the likely players who are here at dev camp that could, surprise in training camp and maybe fight for a roster spot?
Definitely Lambert. I think.
Oh, camera outage, mic outage.
Yeah.
Okay. We still can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay. Well, I'll keep talking while I fix my camera. I'm not sure what happened here.
Sure.
Wow.
It's like 1 second. I'm gonna keep talking.
Okay, yeah. No, well, I can ask Brian. I'll ask Brian something. You work on your camera. I will say quickly as well, while Elliot I don't even know, like it just went out like a light. But anyways, I will say yesterday I tweeted about it. I had the video of his goal there. Yesterday was the Alphonse Frey show. His skating is unbelievable. And I know it's just development camp scrimmage, but like the transition play, he's clearly a level above everyone else because he can make the first forechecker miss. So whether the puck is getting dumped into the corner or they're resetting in the neutral zone, he can make that first guy miss, and then they have an immediate numbers advantage. And Frey loves to jump up in the rush, as that video that I posted showed. And his skating is unbelievable. I think Jets fans are really going to like him. Obviously, they just drafted him, so it'll be a while before, we start talking about NHL minutes or AHL and NHL minutes eventually and things like that. But he can move and he's really fun to watch. And then Brad Lambert. I mean, again, it's development camp, but there are some Nikolai Ehlers-esque zone entries happening. Like he'll pick up the puck at the sort of like ringette line / the dots in his own zone with room, and just no one will even come close to touching him until he gets into the zone and the other dots, where at that point he either takes a shot, he curls back, looks for something. Like Brad Lambert's clearly the best skater on the ice. And he was some games as well last year in the AHL. That's why he put up a ton of points, one of the best skaters on the team. And then Elias Salamonson as well. Like you said, Brian, bigger than I thought, honestly. Like seeing him in person, his height listing is all over the place wherever you look. Like it does. So you just got to come down to Dev Camp and watch him in person. Elliot, back to you. You got your camera fixed.
I don't even know what the hell happened there. That was weird. But yeah. Anyways,
most likely to crack the Jets lineup. Yeah,
I think if you're gonna name like any player, it's most likely Brad Lambert. Just obviously with the vacancy at 2C, I think that's if the Jets have always said if there was ever like an injury to a skill player, it would have to be into the top 6, right? It would have to be somebody who's going to play meaningful minutes, make sure that whoever's getting called up, that's who that's going to. I think Salamonson's probably the second closest, just because there's so many questions on the blue line. But but because there's still somewhat of a logjam, like you still have, like you look down the right side, it seems like they're pretty content with DeMello. They're content with Pionk, but I don't know.
Yeah.
And then you look at, I guess that unless he's gonna beat out Colin Miller for the third pair right D, like right. I don't know. That I still don't think happens. I think Salamonson plays this year with the Moose, and I think
in case anybody, of an injury gets called up.
Again, I think that it would have to be somebody like a Pionk gets hurt or DeMello
someone
goes
on the
down.
Right side.
It would have to be somebody on the right side, and I think it has to be somebody higher up in the pairings. I don't think if they get like a third pair D injury, they'll just slot whoever their 7th D is into that spot and play somebody on their offside. I think it's like this situation where we talked about with Lambert last year. Lambert didn't get called up because there wasn't an injury down the middle to somebody in the top 6, right? Like there was none of that. So
there might have been a point, like if Monahan or Scheifele got hurt at any point, maybe Lambert came up and played 5 games. I know there was a time there actually in January, and Matt Hyman, shout out to him, he sent me this, but there was like a few games there where their center depth was like Lowry, Nemesnikov, Toninato, Gustafsson. And it's like, that might have been the time for maybe just a game for Brad Lambert or something like that. But
100%.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think a sleeper pick as well for that is maybe a Nikita Chibrikov in the bottom 6.
Yes.
Just like last year, he played the one game, played great, scored the game-winning goal. Just like a pest, good forechecker, has some skill as well. Perfect bottom 6 player that can evolve into more from there, or possibly evolve into a middle 6 guy. And I think he's maybe the thing is there's no room in the bottom 6 right now. You've got Appleton, Barron, Iafallo, and Niederreiter as the wingers down there. So I don't know where they would look to kind of move a player out. Maybe an Iafallo has been rumored as well. But I think Chibrikov, Salo, and Lambert have the biggest odds. Let us know in the chat below who you think out of those 3 or someone we didn't mention. Yeah, Elliot, go ahead.
I did just want to mention obviously watching Alphonse Frey a little bit off of your clips and other people's comments. I think one of the biggest things I think that is quite refreshing is having a draft pick. You hear about all these things about the player doing this and that and whatever. And it was so refreshing to, okay, those are his strengths and he is playing to them and he's showing them off at Dev Camp. Not to say that, I went to Dev Camp last year and I'm not going to say that we didn't see flashes of anything out of Colby Barlow, but he was quite underwhelming last year. And I do think that obviously has to do with Frey coming from overseas, playing with harder, I would probably say harder competition. Maybe. I know he did play in the J20
Junior League, so I don't know which.
But at the same point, I think I don't know. I think it's just refreshing to see him not do something, but it's refreshing to see him show his qualities. But I will say, and if I'm wrong on this, I'm wrong. I do think that he has a similar pathway, or at least just time frame, as Elias Salomonsson did. I'm not trying to say just because they're both Swedish defensemen that played in the junior league, blah, blah, blah. But I have that kind of sense of where they're at in their development. And I just think that, obviously the Jets picked Barlow. He's a player that's going to take a little longer because he has more holes to fill out in his game. I think Frey is at that point where obviously it's been draft year plus, this would be draft year plus 3 for Salomonsson, something like that.
Going into this year,
yes,
D plus 3.
That's kind of where I think Frey is at, where he'll go back to Sweden. Hopefully he gets minutes in the top league, not having to get sent down to the junior leagues, or in do they have? I know, they have a version of the AHL over there, correct? They have.
I think so.
As far as I know. I'm even if it's that for this year, that's okay too, as long as it's a step up. And I think that was what made Salomonsson's development curve kind of peak a little bit earlier than we thought it was because he took next steps and he was getting to that next level. And then we just have to hope that Frey does the same. But obviously we have to wait and see. But I think that his path is similar to Salomonsson, where it's a 2-3 year wait, and he'll be with the big club.
For sure.
And challenging.
Yeah, and with players like Lambert and Frey, whose strengths are skating, I've been told by people before that, like, when you're developing those types of players, you almost need to push them in tougher leagues all the time. Because if you let a player who's really good at skating stay in one league for too long, then it's a lot easier to generate offense when you're a good skater, or to, get around people. Or if you're Alphonse Frey, just step around this one guy because I'm a really good skater. And then you're not really developing how to, make a tough zone exit when there's 2 forecheckers coming at you when you're in the corner, or the right read. Like, and Brad Lambert, say he stayed in the AHL the next 2 years or something. Well, he's not going to improve because he's already one of the best skaters on the ice. And a lot of his offense generation comes from speed, and it will in the NHL, but you almost need that tougher competition to learn how to do other things than just rely on your speed. And I think with Alphonse Frey, that's a big thing as well, because he's a great skater. He loves to generate offense, jump up in the rush, but you'll almost need to push him in maybe the SHL or the AHL or even the NHL a little bit earlier, just to get him, playing against that tough competition and really learning how to make the right reads and not rely on his speed that much, even though that is a massive strength of his. It is the strength of his. So it'll be really interesting to see. I'm excited to watch his development because he's just a fun player to watch. Brian, anything else on development camp? Some prospects that you're watching at development camp going into training camp? Actually, I should give a shout out Danny Zhilkin. He was in chat, LFP live chat the other day. He can't be in chat because he's on the ice right now, but I saw him in the room. It was nice to see him. Had a great conversation with him, so it was nice to see him. But Brian, anything else on development camp before I probably got to head out here? These guys are switching rinks.
No, so I wanted to bring this up too. I noticed a lot of just in the little scrimmages that they would do, Lambert's defensive play relied heavily on his ability to close gaps. And it felt like if there was a point where someone was getting around one of, I think he was on Team Blue, one of Team Blue's either wingers or defensemen, he would be there to kind of pressure that shooter off a little bit to the side. So I think that's going to be, he's not going to be the shutdown guy that, you've seen from other, second line centers. He's not going to be a guy who's just going to be really good positionally in terms of that he's already there. He's the type of guy who's a little bit flashier. He might get out of position, but he can make up for that with the closing speed that he'll have. He's going to be faster than most of the guys that he'll be coming up against, just based on the fact that he is, far and away going to be the best skater in the Jets development system here. So I think that seeing him use that speed to close gaps and pressure shooters, I think is a really good thing, especially in dev camp, where I feel like it's mainly focused on, the offensive game. Seeing that, I noticed it just viewing ringside there. So if I'm noticing it from that up close and everything, I can only assume that it's going to sort of translate a little bit there.
Yeah, absolutely. They also did a drill yesterday where they were doing these one-on-ones, whereas like they would run the puck around the boards, the forward would pick it up on the wall, and then it would just be a one-on-one from the wall to the front of the net. And I thought he did really good in that drill as well defensively on that topic. So I'm gonna head out. These guys are switching rinks. I think they were just on this rink. They're gonna switch and then switch back and scrimmage. And then hopefully media is earlier today because I got to get down to the Gold Eyes game with Brian, which starts at 1:00. Beautiful day, goldeyes.com/tickets. Go check it out. Yeah, let's you're going to hear a word from DraftKings. And when Brian and Elliot come back, I'm sure they're going to open up the questions. There's a lot of people in chat. Drop your questions below. Have a great Sunday, everyone. Stick around with Brian and Elliot for the questions portion, and I'll see you all next Sunday. But stick around, Brian and Elliot, after the break.
Bet the action on the ice with DraftKings Sportsbook. The Florida Panthers may have been victorious this season, but it's never too early to start thinking about who you might pick as your Stanley Cup champion next season. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/ice for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Copyright NHL 2024, all rights reserved. And we are back. As Connor said, he had to run. He's doing all sorts of stuff at the Hockey for All Center right now. So I'm going to take over the host seat here. As he mentioned, though, we're going to open it up to some questions because, we've reached that time of the show where, there's been enough that we've talked about that I can only assume it has spurred some sort of, question mark in some people's heads. So whether it's about what we've talked about already, something we didn't talk about, or, something entirely unrelated to our conversations today, feel free to drop in the chat and shoot us a little question here, and we will be happy to answer it for you. Just as they roll through here, I wanted to quickly just touch on, we briefly talked about it earlier in the episode, but Elliot, I wanted to know your thoughts on the Moose depth that they're signing this year. Especially, I want to look down the middle here where at the AHL level right now on the depth chart, including Brad Lambert, they have like 7 centers. Do you think that's a sign that they're anticipating the Lambert jump here?
I would assume so. Obviously, they haven't gone out and signed a 2C, right? They missed out on Sean Monahan. They missed out on Chandler Stevenson. However many players you want to say they missed out on. It seems like they weren't even other than Monahan, it sounds like they weren't really in the market for one, right? There were it was
Henrique, right?
They were looking at Henrique, but
they apparently were just under what the Oilers offered.
But realistically, you go Monahan, Henrique. Well, they weren't big players then for Chandler Stevenson. They weren't big players for lots of other players, right? So I would safely assume that they are. I'm wondering if this is a similar situation to what they did with Ville Heinola, at least in preseason last year, where they said there is a spot available. If you play well enough, it is yours.
Go out and get it.
Go out and get it. Now, obviously, with the Ville Heinola situation, it was a little bit different because he gets injured. Then he's out for many months. Then by the time he comes back, the Jets are rolling. There's really if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So that's kind of where I'm at with that. I think if you I'll rattle off names here. Funny enough, I actually have Cap Friendly already open. You've obviously
Wait, is it still live?
I guess so. I searched up. I was looking for Puckpedia, but then the Cap Friendly is still open, so that's okay with me.
What a pleasant surprise.
So you've got Lucius, you've got Parker Ford, but I believe they play him more on the wing.
He shifts
at
back and
times.
forth.
Yeah. Henry Nikkanen. They've got Wagner listed here. I'm assuming at some point he will come over. But then you also have Jokin and Dominic Toninato, right? Like, so realistically, if you look at that depth, you would have to think at some point they give him a shot, right? But
Yeah.
I don't know. I really hope that's the case because I think that they need to start opening up lanes for younger players to try to make the lineup. But you never know. I mean, they're loading up the AHL team, that's for sure. Like I'm wondering what they're trying. Like, obviously they're picking up tons of depth here. I'm wondering if they're trying to, no, this sounds really weird to say, but it's like they're trying to go for a cup run with the Moose. But I'm wondering,
it wouldn't shock me. Like I know that's a lot of teams prioritize that, where they surround some of their younger guys with just a bunch of
100%.
vets who have played. They've done their time in the AHL and they know what it takes to sort of play in that league. And we've heard time and time again that there is value in the AHL playoff runs, the grind of a
100%.
Calder Cup final run. And it wouldn't shock me if that was sort of a priority for them, is to get these guys, like a guys like, Mason Shaw, who they bring in, who is, played for so long in the AHL. Obviously guys like Hayden Fleury has been kind of that tweener guy, probably going to be more of an AHL guy this year. They've done their time down there, so they know sort of what it's like in that league. And these guys that might be making the jump for the first time into the pros, having that type of veteran presence around them isn't a bad thing. And I wanted to go back
100%.
here because you said like one way or another it seems like we're getting Lambert. I want to point this out, that I don't necessarily like. I think he's the second line center in name only, because if we look at last season, like, let's just assume that there's going to be a similar philosophy from Arneal, where the top line had the most minutes, followed by the Lowry line, and then the second line. So I think what you're looking at here is Lambert possibly getting on the lineup card second line center, but what would happen is he would end up seeing the third pairing matchup, maybe that, or like you would get more of a third line minutes load, and a more friendly matchup for him. And I think that's
I think it's smarter.
I know, absolutely. But it also gives him the chance to show that, hey, maybe I can play a little higher up. Maybe I deserve a minute's load, or they figure out if it's something that he needs to continue to work on and they keep him on that line. But I think that saying that he's a second line center is, in a vacuum, that's true. Like, maybe he's not ready for the higher minutes, but on the Jets, the second line is effectively the third line in terms of ice time. So
yeah. So
yeah.
So
all right, let's start seeing through the questions here. Let's see. Any validity to the current Ehlers trade rumors, or just a bunch of baseless speculation? I think it's somewhere in between. I do think that he's a great player and teams would be dumb not to check in. I think Carolina is a natural fit because their need for offense, they need to find ways to, create. And also people can speculate a lot too with the Marty Necas rumors as well. So when things start snowballing a little bit like that, it's hard not to pin them together. And I know I can't remember who it was, but talking about the possible battle for Ehlers between the Islanders and the Hurricanes, and that the Hurricanes have Necas as that chip that I don't think can be matched. Yeah. Elliot, do you think that we should be paying attention to that quote unquote battle, or is it one of those things that you're just waiting until you hear from a more sort of established source around the situation before you kind of weigh in on it?
I think until there is some real, not that there isn't validity already, I'm kind of in the camp with you where I think things need to snowball a little bit more here. Like, I need to hearing there's calls between this and this, like between two teams, and they're gonna, finalize something in the next 20 minutes, like something more on that line where it's like, oh, okay, something is going to happen here. I think right now, obviously all GMs do their due diligence, and other GMs listen to other GMs doing their due diligence on players, right? And so I think all that's happening here is not to make speculation. It's not like I'm behind, the curtain and I know, but I'm sure Kevin Cheveldayoff called Carolina and said, hey, we're thinking about moving Nikolai Ehlers. Who do you have in return that you'd be willing to give up for Nikolai Ehlers? And I'm sure there was a 25-minute conversation between the two teams about who's available, who are you willing to give up, okay, well, we're willing to do this, and we're okay, well, we don't really think that's on par with value. Like, I'm sure that has happened with multiple different teams.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't think anything concrete has happened where, the typical, again, I did this last week, but we're going to use Moneyball as an example, where Billy Bean makes a trade, then says, hold on, we're not calling the league just yet to finalize that, and calls somebody else to try to, drive with the price. And we're just waiting for somebody else to drive with the price to trade that player to another team. I think what's happening here is feelers are going out, and that's really all that's happening right now, because I just don't think that anything's really going to happen at this point. If it didn't happen at the draft, I think Nikolai Ehlers is like what Connor's been saying for weeks. He's coming to training camp in September. Yeah. I don't think that anything's going
the longer it's stretched, it seems just so unlikely, unless they're blown away at this point.
Yeah, which I don't know if they're going to do, because I don't, as much as Ehlers' value is Ehlers' value is very high, but at the same point, I don't think teams are going to be selling the farm for Nikolai Ehlers as much as we'd love for him to.
For a year.
Yeah, they're going to do what the Knicks should have done with Carmelo Anthony. Why trade to him for the Nuggets when you knew he wasn't going to re-sign there and he was going to be available in free agency, right? So,
I'll turn it to you, because when we were talking about school and everything, you were not on that episode. So quickly give Matt a little recap here on what you're doing, because let's be honest, it's very similar to us.
Yeah. So funny enough, I'm in the exact same program as Brian and Connor. That's how I shouldn't say that's how I met Brian. I knew Connor from like long time ago. We used to play club and travel basketball together. So I knew him from before that. Have we ever explained the story of how we met? I don't think today's the episode to do it.
No, I know. I think we briefly talked about it. To make a long story short, it was intro communications in the midst of a pandemic, and I wandered up to because I'm older than both of them, so I didn't know them in advance, but I wandered up to both of them because Elliot was wearing a KU basketball sweater and Connor was wearing a 49ers jersey. I'm like, these guys like sports. I like sports. I'm gonna go sit with them. We had to come up with a group. So that's way more simplified than I think it went. But that was back in 2020. So
it was weird. It was weird times because we were in classroom, and then like a couple weeks after, what was that? We were in class like for 2 sessions, and then like the following week we were online.
Yeah,
it was something like like that. It was very weird. But yeah, so I'm in the same program. Excuse me, I got something in my mouth here. Like we're in the same program, but they're a little bit more ahead than me, just because I was playing on the university basketball team. So didn't have the same luxury of, not to say you guys had more time than I did, but it was very difficult to do anything more than like 3 classes when it was practice twice a day. Also trying to get my own gym time. And also there's that thing called work. So I had money to even get to school. So same program, same communications media program, just a little bit behind.
And back to hockey. We mentioned him briefly with the Moose center depth. I'm going to kind of, we've talked about this at length, so I won't spend too much time on this, but I think that there is absolutely, a chance that he comes back and finds his legs here. And, for his sake, I hope he does. I know he's a very talented player, and I think his talent is something that I would love to see more of. But let's be honest, the odds are stacked against him here. So many like serious injuries at this point in his career. He's lost so many of his development years that the odds against him being an impact NHL guy at this point are very low. So I don't see it necessarily. Like maybe he comes back and plays more of a depth role. I just think he's in tough, but I'm absolutely rooting for him. Elliot, anything to add to that?
I mean, yeah, I'm rooting for him, but it's kind of hard to fight injuries when you spend more of your time off ice or in a yellow jersey than you do the normal practice team jersey, right? So it's hard to say because there are still, obviously we've had Scott Wheeler on the show multiple times and he still believes in Chaz Lucius carving out some sort of role. Because he just still sees that there's some potential there. And I do agree. It's very hard to know if he's going to reach any of that potential. But like we've all said, we would really hope he does because he seems to be a good human being. He's been in tough a lot. And it would just be obviously good for the Jets, right? To have him develop.
Yeah. Are the Jets collecting Dillons like Infinity Stones? I would think so. I'm not too sure who their next target is.
Because they lost one already, so you would think that they would want to, like, they technically lost an Infinity Stone if we're really going to that length.
Unless they are getting more specific and they only want that spelling first name.
True. Could be that. It could be that.
Let's start carving out some targets as to who they're going to trade for just based on their name alone. And the all Dillon team.
Well, here, hold on. Let's go to hockey rep. I'm curious.
Yeah, while you're doing that, I'll move on to the next question here. If you could only have one, would you rather have Adam Lowry and his defense and scoring that goes MIA for weeks, or Sean Monahan that can score and play power play one, but not as good on the other side of the puck? I think I'm on the side of Adam Lowry because his offense does go MIA. That's not his game. He is going to be like that's the thing. He had a second peak in his career this last year. This was his best season in the NHL since that 2017-18 playoff run, where he was a top 5 defensive center in terms of his role. But I think I'm gonna trust in the fact that he doesn't play a style that depreciates as much just because he plays very smart. He's never going to be a big time scorer. I feel like it's more of a luxury when he does go on those little runs where he can just randomly put 5 in a week. And then like in the playoffs too, where he just finds ways to score down the stretch. So I think I'm still going with Lowry because for Monahan, I feel like, yeah, he scores and he plays on the power play, but there's so many different guys who can play that bumper position that I wouldn't necessarily lean that way. I feel like Lowry adds so much in terms of his defensive impacts that it's hard to pick against him. Would you agree?
I would agree. I think just because obviously we had this chat when the Jets were deciding on re-signing Sean Monahan. You already have Brad Lambert, so I would rather let go Sean Monahan so you can keep that defensive option and Adam Lowry. Like realistically, at some point in his career, as long as he continues to develop, Brad Lambert will be a faster Sean Monahan, right? Like he's going to be more of a power play quarterback that runs things on that, or even power play 2, depending on the current window that the Jets are in. But right, like he'll be a player on the power play. He's going to put up a good chunk of points, and he's not going to be great defensively, right? But he's faster. So I'd personally and speed is the name of the game nowadays. So I'd rather have Brad Lambert and still be able to keep Adam Lowry.
Yep, I'd agree.
All right. I could get back to you on the Dillon thing if you'd like to know the possible
let's circle
back. Dillons. So with the same spelling, this player is probably not available for trade or any sort of acquisition, but Dylan Larkin.
I think that's safe to rule out.
A player who probably is available, very large cap hit though, is Dylan Strome.
Okay. I've always enjoyed Dylan Strome's game, so he was on my
Yes,
list last year of acquisitions before he signed.
100%. So then, funny enough, the third player in this list is Dylan DeMello, which the
Yep.
Jets already have that Infinity Stone. I'm assuming this player is not available, but Dylan Cousins.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? Buffalo, I have no idea what they're doing anymore.
Oh, yeah. Just, you know what? He could be traded for a sack of peanuts at this point. I don't know.
Yeah.
Dylan Gambrell
Okay.
of the Senators.
I feel like we're starting to dip a little bit here.
Dylan Gunther. I don't know if that's dipping.
I mean, it's hard though for him because he's still so young, and
Yeah.
he'll get a better shot this year, I think, in Utah. So,
Dylan Sandberg is here. Then Dylan Coughlin.
yep.
Dylan Holloway.
So a lot of young guys and a lot of guys that I'm uncertain if they're available for trade.
Another player on the Senators must be doing the same thing because they also have Dylan Ferguson. So they also have two Dylans on their roster.
Yeah.
Or in their organization.
So what
then
we're
Dylan
hearing
Wells.
here is that there are options down the line here for possible Infinity Stone acquisitions, and then they just have to start drafting them too. So
yeah.
All right, let's see. Let's kind of rapid fire a little bit here because we're reaching an hour.
Mhm.
I would do this every day and twice on Sundays. Like,
I'm sure Jarvis would love to come home.
Yeah. Like I feel like Jarvis is one of the guys. Obviously, they still need to sign him, but I feel like you could effectively attach the untouchable label to him right now because he is so utilized in Carolina and what he adds to that team. But if Carolina was willing, I would do that very quickly because you're getting returns like that for guys that clearly they've voiced their desire to go somewhere else. But as you followed up with, unlikely, and I would say probably impossible. Like I would think you would want to target maybe one of their prospect guys, like a Morrow, because he hasn't really made that impact yet. But Jarvis has made such an impact already, and at his age, it's hard to imagine their willingness to trade him. Let's see. I would think, you know, if he's getting traded for, you know, McLeod, I would hope. I mean, like, it wouldn't shock me if Buffalo checked in with some of the stuff going on with the Jets right now. But yeah, I feel like
I'd trade Alex Iafallo for Matt Savoie.
Jeez, yeah. No, I mean, like, McLeod's a good player. He does a lot of good things, but I don't know if I would have traded, you know, a guy like, you know, Matt Savoie for such a, you know, like a role guy. But, you know, power to you, I guess.
Buffalo, do your missing the playoffs thing.
Yeah. This is a weird question because I wouldn't like any Nikolai Ehlers trade.
Yeah.
But I feel like the Natchez return would be probably the best is what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
In terms
of the high
end.
end.
Well, that's the thing, because it's also too, it's falling into the line of they're getting a guy who can make an impact now, which is their window in the next 5 to 7 years, right? So that would probably be the best in terms of returns and everything. Yeah, it was kind of weird. In a week, there are two guys that were drafted in, you know, the top 10 there that were dealt. I think a lot of it is teams are getting impatient and in a cap world, and they can just sign guys and trade for guys who are more, you know, ready to make an impact now. I think teams are getting just impatient.
Yeah. And I think it's their thought process is, oh, well, you know what? There'll be more Matt Savoys, or there'll be more Alexander Holtz's in next year's, well, especially this upcoming year's draft has been earmarked for a while. But in future years, they're just going to assume, oh, yeah, we can go pick up guys that are going to take 3-4 years NHL ETA. We can do that all day of the week, every day of the week, right? So I think that's their thought process on that.
Well, and too, like, it's similar where I know Holtz's value was tanked because of his usage this year. And essentially it was vocalized that the coach didn't trust him. So I think what's happened there is you get a combo of, you know, young guys who are probably going to make an impact, haven't yet, and also the fact that they tried to make an impact and it hasn't worked out. but no, I feel like that's kind of just the way things go these days.
Yeah.
Let's see what's next here. I think he's going to be playing a decent amount of games. I feel like the Comrie acquisition is interesting to me because I wouldn't actually pen him in as the backup. I actually think I like Capo Kakinen more for that role. But I think there's a level of familiarity there that they're betting on Comrie and Hellebuck working better as a tandem because they know each other's tendencies from past. Um, what do you think in terms of what we're looking at here for the tandem?
I mean, if you just go by strictly cap number, Capo Kakinen's getting paid more, right? So if you want to go with that, you can go that route, which is what a lot of people do. But I think the reason that they had Laurent Brossoit last season was to take the load off of Connor Hellebuck a little bit because they knew they weren't going to have Brossoit for long. They knew they were only going to get him for a season. So let's try to ease up on Hellebuck's usage so that he can hopefully get a little bit more in the tank for this back half, I'm going to call it, of his career. And with the extension kicking in. But yeah, I honestly, at this point, I don't care who your backup is. Connor Hellebuck's playing over 50 games this year. Like he's probably playing north of 55. Maybe not. Maybe that's I think whoever the backup is only going to be play max 20 games. Like I think Hellebuck's playing 62, maybe at least. So it's hard to say who. Well, not at least. That would be like more than 3/4 of the games. But I just think that it's going to be tough for whoever the backup is to really make an impact, like Brossoit did, just because of the caliber of player who's getting signed. But I don't know. I think, like Matt's saying, I think it depends on schedule, but I also think that won't matter because I just don't think that Scott Arniel is going to want to roll the dice on, let's say I haven't looked at the schedule, but let's say there's a back-to-back of like Dallas, Colorado.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want Comrie in the net for, like, at least with Brossoit, I felt confident putting him in the net in one of those matchups and giving one of those other nights off for Connor Hellebuck. I think we might even go back to seeing every once in a while, if they've had a kind of a slower week in terms of games, if there's a back-to-back, that the Jets go with double Connor Hellebuck.
Well, I think it's just such a step back from what we had last year. And I
that's
feel
what
like
it is.
I'm concerned to see what that looks like in terms of playtime and how Hellebuck is pushed, but I guess we shall see. Let's see here. I am trying to find this. It is the AHL has made it impossible to find.
It's more accessible to get their player cards than it is their actual stats.
Yeah. No. What I'll do, Jay, is I'm gonna see if I can find this after the episode finishes. And I'll drop it in the actual comment section of this. So you can come back and find it after, because I'm now curious. I'm invested. I want to actually see what that was as well. But yeah, no, I'll drop that in the comments too. Once I actually find it, because let's be real, it's been more of a confusing search at this point. Let's see. I mean, I'll be honest. I expected more from him last year, Daniel Torgerson. I think that what ended up happening was he didn't grow into the expectations that came out of the short sample size of a good training camp a couple years back. And for me now, like, he seems far enough down the depth chart that I'm not concerned about him being like an impact guy down the line. I think he's a good AHL player. He's big, he's strong, but in terms of being like a difference maker, I just don't know if it's there.
That he hasn't shown enough at the AHL level to warrant anything more, to be honest. He just hasn't done enough. Like not that it's frustrating, but it's at that point where it's like, okay, you got to show something here. But yeah, I don't know. I think that he is maybe depth at best, but
yeah,
I don't even know if you're getting that.
Yeah. I tend to agree. Let's see. Yeah, bringing up here, Kakkonen was apparently he was the next coming of Dom Hasek when he was playing the Jets this last season here. So, okay, I think this is going to be our last one for today because we're at 100. We're at an hour 5.
100 minutes.
100 minutes. We're gonna just keep going. Jeez, I'm tired.
So good.
Gonna be a long day at the ballpark. Let's hope for a nice win. It's gonna
Hopefully
be
a 17-0 or 17-7 win.
Another one of those. Which the next night, Sioux City lost again, giving up 17 to Milwaukee.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So they lost to us 17-7. Then they lost 17-9 to Milwaukee.
Almost batted around twice.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Lastly to finish it up here, do you see any captain potential now that Rutgers on the way out? I think it's just really hard to project because like these guys, a lot of them, they this is their life. Like they've been playing this game since they were 3 years old, and some guys just vocalize a lot more in terms of their, obviously their teamwork, and I think that the Jets do prioritize character a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think down the line, let's say, if you're looking way into the future, I know that they've talked about the leadership capabilities of Colby Barlow. I don't know if he gets to that point, but maybe down the line he, becomes an impact NHL player and they see that, leadership quality in him there. But I think that projecting that type of thing is difficult. And Rutger was one of those guys that I think teams just latched onto because of his personality, and it was easy to project that, but now I think I've learned my lesson.
Yeah. Yeah. I think just to quickly cap this off, I think at least for the next couple seasons, it's Adam Lowry. So you can't even and then at that point, like, who do you go with? At that point, some of the only players that are for sure locked up are, maybe Josh Morrissey gets it, or maybe towards the tail end of his career, Mark Scheifele finally becomes right. There's too many, you can call them storylines, or, there's too many unknowns right now for us to project something. Like, we can try to project a player's development curve, but I think projecting who's a potential captain like 4 years down the line, or 3 to 4 years down the line, is even tougher than doing that, right? So I don't know. I think the Jets have done well in trying to draft players that have the possibility of doing that, but I also think they're trying to get away from the character issues that they've had. And unfortunately, it seems like the character issues that they thought they got rid of and drafted a player to change that seems to have crept back in.
Us talking about character and drafting issues. So it's
draft and develop, baby.
We're gonna head out of here. Obviously, on your way out, like, subscribe. If you're listening to this in the audio form, which should come out either later today or tomorrow, rate and review, share it with your friends. On our way out, Elliot, anything you'd like to say?
Enjoy the week, have fun. Obviously, if anything big happens, we'll probably drop an episode. But yeah, just hope you all enjoyed the show. Keep coming back for more. It's not gonna be the same every week. We're gonna spice it up. But yeah, like, subscribe, and hope everyone has a good rest of their Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Connor said on his way out, if you missed it, Goldeyes are playing today, 1 p.m., 1:05 first pitch against the Fargo-Moorhead Redhawks, the rivalry that headlines this league every year and has since 1994. If you're looking for something fun to do today, it is Sunday Family Fun Day. So you have kids, bring them on down outside the right field fence. You got bouncy houses. You've got player autographs, all sorts of stuff. So it's, a great environment around there today. If you have, once again, kids, they can run the bases after the game. So it's going to be, those Sundays are fantastic. Memories are made. And there's a lot of good baseball being played. So goldeyes.com/tickets if you want to do that. But I got to get down there right now and actually do my job. So I'm going to...
What? This isn't your job? This isn't a full-time position?
Wow. I mean, I'm not doing it from the ballpark today because I didn't feel like getting up extra early. So I have to actually make my way down there. But, on our way out here, as I said, like, subscribe. We're going to see you at some point next week, whether it's during the week or the Sunday. We'll be there. So have a great Sunday, everyone. We will see you next week. See ya.
Peace out.